Hello. I have something planned today that might be different, I hope. It's kind of along the lines of doodling, but it has a little more purpose to it. This is a landscape design that I'm doing for a friend, and it's a teeny tiny space. But I thought that scale might be good to observe. And I don't practice landscape architecture anymore except for some friends, but I am licensed. I got a degree in landscape architecture and I am licensed in it. So this is a silly little design I'm working on. 12 by 40 is the scale, or is the space size that I'm working with. And she wants a little memorial garden. She has some plants that she's putting in there from some friends who have passed. And she also has some little trinkets that she wanted to put in there. And she wanted a little path and a couple of places to sit. So that's what I've created. I'm hoping you can see it. There's a little crinkle in my page too. So I'll probably redraw all of this when I'm done. But here it is. But the plants I will do with different shapes, and then I'll call out the plant below. There's lots of different ways to do a planting plan in landscape architecture. You can make everything just a circle and then just do call outs with symbols or with letters like PH, would be phlox, and that's all that distinguishes, and that everything's circles. Sometimes that's nice and clean, but it's not quite as artistic and fun. So because she's a friend, I'm going to go make a little fancier. And also, if I were working in the firm where I used to work, I would, of course, do it all on AutoCAD because people just don't hand draft anymore. But this is a tiny space, and I think it will just feel more personal and fun for her to have it look like it was hand drafted. She has a little thing going through the yard of pictures, or excuse me, old windows hung along the fence, so I thought it would be fun to suspend a window by the hammock so that you could look out the window while you're sitting in the hammock at the rest of the garden, just kind of for fun. All right, let's see what else to show you. I think that's it. Okay, I'm just about done with my design for Robin's Memorial Garden, and I'm just going to kind of go through everything again. This is the plant list, and on the plant list I've got where she can purchase it. There's some symbols for where she can purchase it. The Latin name, the common name, the color, bloom time, height and width, and then the comments. And things in the comments are like hummingbirds would love to hang out in this plant, if it's ground cover, if it's a mounded decorative grass, if it's a succulent, if it's a good cut flower. I just like to give them little notes like that so that they can know what to plan on. And then I usually put together pictures of the plants so that they can see them. And this is her list of perennials. And it's just kind of a nice thing for her to see the layout and the colors and the textures all on one sheet. And then this sheet has got her ground covers and grasses. And I've just got two grasses that I'm going to use on her plan. The miscanthus and the fountain grass are the two grasses that I will use on her design. And now I'll talk a little bit about her design. Here's the finished product. And you can see that I've colored it, and I've given the little kind of a key or legend off to the side there that tells her what each plant is and the symbol that goes with it. And I just put the first name of the plant on the side so that she can use this main key to look up the plant and to order it. Because when you order the plant, it's often a good idea to order it with that Latin name, because then there's no mistaking. A lot of times the common names, you'll find many plants will be called by the same common names, but the Latin names are pretty unique to the plant itself, the type of plant and the hybrid and everything. So, Robin's Memorial Garden, here's the path that you enter from. The driveway is here. And she wanted a little path that you could enter from. Right now this whole area is mounded, so she's going to have to get someone to dig down and drop the grade here for this flat rock to go in, and put some sand and then put the flat rock, lay it in so that it's level, and then you put a sand in between it. It's not a playground, or yeah, it's not a playground sand. It's got a little bit of clay in it, and the clay, when it gets wet, kind of hardens and sets a little bit. So it's almost like a mortar has been put in, but it's not as fixed as a mortar. You can replace stones and things if something goes wrong. And then I've got a couple of boulders called out. And then each plant has its own color coding. And you'll also notice I put a little bit of shadow on the bottom side of each plant so that you can feel like they've popped up a little. This is considered plan view. This one's 1/4 inch scale. You can have, of course, many different scales for a planting plan, but because this is a little tiny area, 1/4 inch is a good size to see it. And then with certain plants, I've kind of given it a little darker color. I don't know if it'll read on the camera, but I put a little darker color at the bottom of each plant, and then the lighter color at the top, so that it, again, feels kind of like there's a shadow, so the sun would be hitting it this way. This is her special feature that I want her to be able to see from the kitchen, because the kitchen view comes in from here. So that way she could also sit on either end of this little rock patio and be able to see the special feature, whether it's a water feature or sculpture. And then, of course, around that, then I've got ground cover. All these little amoeba shapes are ground cover. And I'll hold it close, and hopefully you can see that each ground cover has a different hatch pattern to it. I hope that that will read. And the different hatch patterns are called out off to the side. And each hatch pattern represents a different kind of plant. So each of those are different types of ground cover, because she wanted a lot of color. Normally for this size garden I would probably pick 3 to 5 types of plants, and then have them put all around so that it ties together. And I've got a lot, probably 3 times that on this plan, because she likes lots of different plants. So we want to do what the owner wants to do. And let's see, what else? So you walk in, and over here there'll be a little table and a couple of tiny chairs, very small, like a little bistro table. And over here she wants to either hang a hammock or get one that can sit in there, and that's probably about a 5-foot circle, so I think she could make that work. I left her some blank spaces because she likes clematis. So this is a fence along here, and she can just plug in whatever clematis she wants that can grow up the fence and look really soft and pretty and floral. And then again, we've got a ground cover here, and then just a little 1-inch high, cute little red plant, flowering plant that grows here, and then a lower plant again, so that you want to be able to see in here. So all of these plants through here are low growing, so as to allow for a good view shed to this special feature. And then these plants along here are taller, and normally you would not block the view into the garden, but she wants this garden to feel very private. So I've got plants along here that will allow for privacy. These are tall maiden grass plants, and they really are gorgeous. They billow in the wind, and they even make a nice little sound as they move in the wind. I planted some of those at one of my houses, and I loved that house and I loved that garden because I could sit behind the grasses and just watch them moving in the wind, and people would walk by and they would not even see me there because the grasses were high enough that it kind of gave me some privacy. And then these here are blue mist shrubs, so they will be about 3 feet high and 3 feet wide, and they'll flower midsummer. And the 3 feet will give her a little bit of privacy here too, but also allow her to see out over. So I'm hoping that that will be a good balance between those sides. And again, I would normally match these plants because it's such a long, narrow space. I would probably go for a little more symmetry. But she definitely wanted it to be asymmetrical. So I've given her different plants, but still kept kind of an asymmetrical balance with that. So there you have it. These are kind of fun little plants. If you can see these pink plants, they'll bloom late summer into early fall, and those are also called hummingbird plants. This particular one is Desert Sunrise, which is just beautiful. You can order those, I believe, on High Country Gardens. I'm not sure. HighCountryGardens.com is one of my favorite places to order plants because they understand the kind of mountain desert climate, and they have a small plant palette, but I've never had anything I've purchased from them has always survived and done well, so I really like that site. Let's see, I've got echinacea growing, and those will get about 40 inches high and be a beautiful purple cone flower. These will attract the hummingbirds, the pink ones I was talking about that bloom late. So it's nice to have this. This is phlox that'll bloom early spring, and then these will be blooming late summer. And there's something that's, of course, nice about having color through the whole season, the beginning of the season and the end of the season. And then a fun little thing that the hummingbirds will come and enjoy those, so that when they're sitting out here, they'll be able to watch the hummingbirds. And if you watch hummingbirds, there's usually one that's very territorial. And it's kind of fascinating to watch them because one will usually find a little tree nearby where it'll perch and keep guard almost. And then as other hummingbirds come, and there's plenty for all of the hummingbirds, but when they come, that hummingbird will just buzz in and dart and hang out and kind of terrorize the other hummingbirds and keep them away. So that's kind of a fun thing to watch. All right, pincushion flower here has nice little stalks of flowers with a little purple pincushion flower at the top. And this is Rudbeckia, or black-eyed Susan, which is a very pretty golden yellow flower. And this particular variety is called Gold Sturm, and it's very hardy, which is good, because sometimes that plant can be a little temperamental. My flat rock, I don't know if you can tell, but I've given it a little bit of darker pencil along the side also to make it feel like there's a little bit of texture to it. Let's see if I can hold that up. What else? This is a little red plant, little red flowering Giardia plant. It's very cute. This is called Perky Sue, or actually, I'm sorry, it's called Thrift Leaf Perky Sue. And it's a cute little yellow mounding daisy. And I don't see it in anyone's garden. It's one that I found, again, through that High Country Gardens that's a native, and it was just so cute. And it did really well, and it doesn't need much water, so I love to put that in people's gardens when I can. These are grasses. That's a ham elm fountain grass that gets about 3 feet high. Well, probably more like 2.5 feet high, and about the same width, and it's a beautiful mound. And it gets these cream-colored tassels on it that are just really beautiful. And then I already talked about the miscanthus. That's the other grass. So I only put 2 grasses in her garden because she likes lots of flowers. So I think that's everything. You can see the different ground covers. And I've got some that are succulent that will have beautiful flowers on them, and then they'll just be more of the succulent foliage. I've got some early blooming phlox. I've got some here that is called a silver-edged horehound, and it's really pretty green and white plant. The back sides of the leaves are white, and there's a white little rim on the edge of it, and the rest of it's a dark green, so it almost looks like a flower growing, so that's kind of fun. And I've not seen that one planted. That's a new one I'm calling out, so I hope that it does well. And then a couple of boulders to sit on. If she doesn't want the boulders, she can easily just plug in another Rudbeckia. And in landscape design, it's nice to do little groups of 3. I've kind of balanced it with 3 and 2 here, so that your eye will kind of, as you're in this space, it will tie things together and you'll start to see that everything comes together. Even though I've put lots of different plants in, I want it to feel unified and not chaotic. And this one's pretty busy, so I wanted to be sure that I brought in the themes of certain plants to balance it out. So you'll see these on both ends, and generally if I've got something on one side, I try to bring it in on the other side so that you feel a balance. Okay, so there you go. Oh, and I've called out here, looks kind of funny, but I've called out a certain ground cover there and just kind of made a little tag to hook it to each end. And that's because it's hard to hatch a pattern between the rocks, and that's for the creeping thyme and for the Irish moss that will go between the rocks, so that she'll have some really pretty greenery between the rocks. So that's my little planting plan for you. Very little planting plan. That's probably one of the tiniest areas I've ever done a planting plan for. And I actually typically don't color them. I usually just, it's almost easier to read in black and white, but I think she will enjoy this. And she's a friend, so I colored this one for her because I thought she might enjoy looking at that after she's got it all planted. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.